Hi guys, Lily Jean Berry here for Wall of Sound. If you're anything like me, it's been a pretty dark 5 years for you since Finnish love metal rockers Him announced their time as a group was coming to an end. I had been listening to that band for 12 years before that point, and the 15-year-old part of me that fell in love with the man I'm about to speak to, honestly, hasn't been the same until the Heartagram resurfaced earlier this year, along with the announcement that the ex-frontman of the band had new music on the way. With his debut record, Neon Noir, just around the corner. I can't quite believe I'm saying this, but please welcome Ville Valo.
Woohoo! Thanks for having me. How are you doing today?
My absolute pleasure. I'm doing really, really well. Thank you. Ville, before I get to the point where I'm embarrassed myself, which I will get to at some point, I would love to hear from you just a really generic kind of question on how it feels to you to be releasing music again.
It feels quite weird. I sort of like felt a bit agoraphobic when I need to sort of like it's hard to get acclimated to humanity again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels that I developed some allergies when it comes to human speech during COVID. You know, it was a bit because everybody was sucked into that black hole of more or less a solitude. You know, and in my case, it was very just. I locked myself in the studio room for 2.5 years in a row, not really meeting anybody. And I guess, you know, the forcing myself to do that was great for the album, really great for the music, but definitely not great for you know, anything else. You know, messed my life.
Especially not when you get spat out the other side and life's back to normal. Yeah.
Indeed, but then again, you know, I think, you know, life is all about challenges, and you know, it's important to keep oneself on their toes. So I think also the break in between the disbandment of Him and then the new stuff, you know, the heart grows fonder. You know, it's it indeed does. You know, at least mine did, because I needed a breather, and I didn't need it to figure out what I'm going to do and if music is still the thing for me. And of course it is, and I was sure about that. But you can never tell. You know, music is now. I can't decide what music does. Music will, you know, it will come to me or it won't, and I can't force it. So I'm happy that I was able to put those 12 ditties together and put, you know, create the album. So I'm happy. And now this is the next step, actually, you know, speaking to people about it, and then touring in like a month and a half or so. And
we are definitely going to touch on that. Definitely.
Yeah, we're working. Yeah, I'm working my butt off to make sure that we'll play Australia as well later on next year. So.
I'm sure you will receive a lot of loud demands from us Australians, and not shy in any way.
And I'm hearing all of them. You know, it's because we with Him, we had great experience in Australia, and it's such a cool thing for, you know, musician from this little backwoods country, you know, to be able to tour around the world and visit different cultures and meet different kinds of people. And you know, the sun shines differently in Australia. Maybe it's the UV or whatever. I'm not quite sure, but I've always had great times there. So it'd be absolutely fabulous. And I sort of feel not necessarily pride, but I feel that I need to be able to play the music and sing the new music and the old music as well, to as many people as possible, because I think it's an old dog and new trick sort of thing as well. It's like I have to do it. You know, it would be idiotic for me. I want to play a couple of shows and then go back to the agoraphobic, you know, allergic to
recluse again. Sort of. Thanks for that.
Indeed.
I love that you just said sort of old dog new tricks type thing, because my next question is actually, you know, when you announced that you were disbanding as Him, I know you mentioned at the time that it was because you all wanted the opportunity to kind of explore new ventures if that was right for you. So do you feel like in creating Neon Noir, you had the opportunity to, I guess, broaden your creative horizons? And were there any new, you know, techniques or elements that you were able to introduce on the record that you're excited for people to hear?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the fact that this wasn't the recording wasn't made as a band. So due to COVID, I ended up playing all the instruments by myself, and I ended up recording the whole album by myself. So I did everything here.
That's phenomenal.
This is my home studio. So the only thing that was outsourced was mixing and mastering, and the album was mixed by Tim Palmer, a fella who worked on several him albums before, and who's got love the variety of music he's worked with, you know, from Sepultura to U2 and so forth. He sort of like understands the yin and yang nature of what I do as well. So it was important to have a set of ears that could see the forest for the trees after those long sessions. So but otherwise, you know, I've worked on the stuff by myself, which enabled me to go full on pervert with my influences. You know, meaning that I was able to utilize more of the 80s alt rock, the sort of Susu and the Banshees, the Chameleons, the Sisters of Mercy, the Mission, all that stuff, along with the maybe even the more popular like Aha and Duran, those synthy sort of things. I grew up with that stuff, a big part of who I am. But maybe with him, it wasn't something that the guys felt comfortable with. They were more maybe rock guys, and maybe even some folkier aspects. There was the first single, Love Letting. It has a bit of the Birds or Mamas and the Papas in the sound. There's a lot of harmonies. It's very flowy and 60s in a way.
Yeah, like, it kind of feels like a gentler approach to you releasing music, almost. Like it's like it's almost like Sorry,
no. My brain is starting to wake up bit by bit.
Of course.
No, it's 12 o'clock here in Finland. So, but yeah, I think the cool thing also regarding the previous question is the fact that I was working with this album. I didn't have to think about any other people. I didn't have to think about that since we have a drummer or we have a guitar player that they need something to do. So so the only thing I was working on was the song, and wanted to be sort of sensitive enough to have the song lead the way. You know, but let the song make the decisions and see where it can, you know, where it can take me and where it can take itself. So I think that was a big deal. And also, it's that age-old saying is a lot of players play their instruments, but they don't necessarily play the song. And by that, I'm not criticizing the hymn members at all. But in creating a new band, so I'm not the best in playing any instrument, but since I know the songs and they're my songs, I'm playing my songs the way I want to.
Yes.
And it's my interpretation. It's quite unique in that it's once again, it's not for better or for worse. You know, that's not the point. It's just it's very me. And I think anyway, the realm of rock and roll and music in general needs unique voices. You know, but when stuff is very generic and when stuff is really getting the more same old along the way, it's I think it's cool to be able to hopefully be the beauty mark on rock and roll's face, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What a beautiful, succinct way to put it. I definitely felt like when I was listening, everything, and not that it didn't in any kind of hymn record previously, but this every sound felt very much intentional. So when you touched on synths before and influences and things like that, I guess because it's all you creating every single one, they all did complement the song. Instead of 5 people with all of their instruments, and then you have to take elements away or slow it down. It feels like everything was very intentional almost.
Yes, with the band, the camaraderie, and then the, you know, more than some of its parts, that sort of action is very important. But then again, it is always, especially with bands, a lot of times the main compromise is with scheduling. It's like, you know, somebody changed the nappies and somebody wants to play music, and it easily gets into this huge mess that all of a sudden, you know, you can't find a day in a month so that everybody's available. So with this album, I didn't have that problem at all. I was available too much, I guess. But the thing I was lacking with it was that I wasn't able to brainstorm with anybody. And that's actually, that was a big loss, because I like talking. I like the sort of Jackson Pollock technique that you throw poop around and see what sticks. Sort of. I find that very important. That's sort of like really open brainstorming. And so doing that by myself, you know, with a computer or whatever, it was quite an insane thing to do, but it worked out well. And I think the most important thing about the whole thing, there's an achievement for myself. I was able to prove myself that actually I can pull it off, and I think that's a big deal in essence. Then the next question is, does it sound good? And I think it does, because I made it for myself. So that's the sound I'm hearing in my head. It's not diluted by a vibe of a producer or a record company or whomever. There was no. I had a cool workings. It's Spine Farm and then it's Universal Music with whom I work it with. But basically, the album's coming out on Hardigram Records. So I had no creative input from the label at all, which was quite daunting because I'm used to people saying, that's good, or we hate it. But no, it was like just a wall of silence.
Here it is.
So I just made the whole thing by myself, and was, kept my fingers crossed that people would enjoy it and sort of like feel that it's good enough to be put out there. So I'm happy. I thought that, it's a lot of new experiences for somebody who's quite well versed.
Making music for a while.
I'm doing this for a while, and records and all that. So I think there was so many new things to learn from, as well as I worked quite a bit on the cover artwork. I made a font or like a typeset for it, and I went all crazy, all bonkers, because I'm stickler for detail. I love detail. I love really detail-oriented work, and that's usually the thing that people hate about me. They can't stand it because I'm like hyper-focused on the silliest little thing. But then again,
I relate to that so much.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But I guess that makes it special, and that makes it hopefully unique. What we discussed about the stuff being very generic very easily. People using the same tools and same ideas, and not really listening to the heart enough, because it should be instinctual, and it should be a big that to everything. It should have some sort of punk energy to it. It doesn't have to sound like punk rock, but it has to have a sense of reckless abandon.
That this is me. This is not me fitting a narrative of anybody else or an expectation of my previous work. This is me and what I wanted to release. Yeah.
Or in other words, it's like F you, mom and dad. That's where it all stems from.
You know what, when I was preparing for this, I love that you said that, and I wasn't going to touch on this, but when I was preparing to chat to you, I was trying to find a poster that I had of you on my wall when I was like 15, and how my mom hated it because you had tattoos, and I went to a Catholic high school and all of this stuff, and I was so very unapologetically like this huge fan of, and it just happened overnight. And I found this photo of you with all of your tattoos out and a cigarette in your mouth. And I think there's always been a little part of you that's kind of like, fuck you, this is who I am. I wanted to ask we touched on earlier, you're embarking on this quite a big tour across, you've got Europe, the UK and North America booked so far. And most of Europe is pretty much already sold out, which must feel pretty flattering after 5 years away from doing this.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah. How does the preparing for the tour differ for you now as a solo artist? And are you feeling a different sense of nervousness knowing that you kind of have to go up there by yourself instead of with the support of a whole group?
Well, him is the only band I've ever been really a part of, so that's my musical life. So I keep on forgetting that it's not him. Does it? That actually that it's a solo album, because originally when I started working the set list, I thought that we can't skip that one, and we have to play this one, and we don't play like 2 songs of the new album. That's fine, because that's how bands do usually when they have 8 albums. They don't play a lot of songs from the new one. It's a combination of everything. Then it took me a half a year to realize that this is not him. It's actually a solo album, and I should be playing more of the new stuff. And it's quite funny. There's a lot of similarities, emotionally speaking, and musically speaking, and the set list will be it'll be half and half. So we play a lot of hymn songs and a lot of.
That's really exciting.
I think it sounds great. The newer stuff like Echolocate Your Love sounds great next to Rip Out the Wings of a Butterfly. Sounds great next to The Forever Lost. Sounds great next to The Funeral of Hearts. Sounds great next to whatever. There's more similarities than differences, with Neon Noir. Yeah, so it comes from the same source anyway. So I'm not embarrassed to say that, and not shy about it in that sense. I think it makes all the sense in the world, and also we're zigzagging between the old and the present, the present or the new songs in the set, because I've never been a big fan of bands playing, 8 new songs and then so it's like, bulk of this and bulk of that. I think it feels weird. So the whole journey through time also makes it interesting for myself, because playing like Runaway from the Sun and then playing When Love It at the Brace, there's like the span of nearly 30 years in between, but still they share so much the similar sort of the core and the essence of the sort of like the melancholy aspect of it and the sort of dreaminess and the, you know, a bit of a, yeah, it's like a, yeah, like a, yeah, I wouldn't
call myself. You're in my brain. Yeah. I don't want to stop you, but it's like you're in my brain because I wanted to say, like, I've had the pleasure of listening to the whole record of Neon Noir, and it's got a very comforting familiarity, almost just because I'm hearing your voice. But I felt like I'd been whisked away to like a gothic dreamland. And so when you said dreamy, then I was like, oh my God, it's literally like you're in my head. As a, you know, I'm a huge fan of long songs. Like I love them. And the first record, or one of the first records that you brought out, you know, when I was of age to become a him fan was Venus Doom, where they are quite long, dynamic songs and they change throughout. So I felt that level of familiarity when listening to Saturnalia, which was definitely the standout for me. I know this is like asking you to pick your favorite child, but like, do you have a favorite track that you're really excited for everyone to hear that they haven't heard yet?
Well, I don't have children, so I don't know how it is to pick between.
No, neither do I. I have a dog, but like
whatever. But no, there's I think the cool thing about an album, an old school album, where there's a song order for, there's a certain element of roller coaster ride and there's a drama. Each song reflects from each other, and there's a reason for a song to be before or after another, and I think that in that sense, I'm happy about the album as a whole. But this, let's say, something that for me is exciting and very new is the song "Heart Full of Ghosts," because that's mood wise. It's quite a long song, but it's basically one theme that keeps on expanding and getting more excited and sort of nightmarish and more feverish along the way. Yet it feels. I like the word you use, comforting. You mentioned familiarity, but if the album could be comforting, even to people who don't know of him, that's a nice word. Where it feels like a warm, musky hug, a bit with a bit of Julie, you know.
It's like, I don't want to say nostalgia because it's definitely not the same. It's so in its own lane, but like the elements I would never want to miss from a him record being, you know, your voice, but also that whimsical dreaminess and the journey. I love that you touched on the roller coaster of a record, and you know, I'm a big vinyl listener. I've got a lot of mine behind me because I know that there is so much intention behind what goes before and after what and things like that. So I'm excited for everyone to also listen to the whole record, and I hope that everyone does, because it's such a beautiful experience,
especially in vinyl, because you know it's going to be a double vinyl. It's a gatefold, so it's designed to be a vinyl, and all the long songs are on the second LP. So that's the whole deal. That was like Jane's Addiction. They had Ritual de la Habitual. They had the side A being all the fast songs, and then side B being all the moody ones. So I had a similar idea but expanded. So the first record is more rock, and then the second one is a bit more psychedelic and moody and weird.
Yeah, and I hear that when
Friday night and Sunday morning sort of thing.
I love it. Now, I said earlier that I was going to embarrass myself, and it's not really that embarrassing. It's just basically harping on about how I was a giant fangirl when I was 15. I wanted to tell you about my fondest him memory. I had to share it with you, which was my sister and we came to see you on what I believe was your Venus Doom record tour. You came out to a venue here in Australia called Festival Hall. Now, typically Festival Hall will have over 18 on the floor, and then on the sides they have all ages. So at the time I was 16 and my younger sister had just turned 15. I believe I had a fake ID, and that's how I got into the floor. And she just straight jumped the barrier, like jumped down, was like, I'm in that over 18 section with my sister. And we ran in, and we had this sort of level of fear of being caught by the guards and someone kicking us out. So we got into the sea of people, and we stood there for a little bit, just kind of waiting. And you guys were playing. I think you were a song or two in. And then we finally started to relax and go, okay, I think we're safe. No one's going to kick us out. And then you started playing one of our favorite songs. And without any prior conversation, we hadn't planned this whatsoever. You know, we'd barely sung along at all. And then in Buried Alive by Love, right before you jump into the chorus, we just sort of looked at each other and turned in unison and went, "It feels like I've been buried alive by love," and like looked at each other and sung it to each other. And my sister, who's my best friend, like, it's just become such a beautiful, fond memory for me. And every time I think of your band, that's what I think of, is that memory with my sister.
That's very endearing. But that's the cool thing about music in general. For me, it's always, I think music is at its best when it's sort of the background, the soundtrack of important moments in life in general. And it's kind of, yeah, the soundtrack of people's lives. That's always interesting because you know, the genres and the musical, you know, they can be all over the place, but you know, your first kiss and those special, like those moments where you just
moments with family.
All that. So it's quite incredible, and it's nice to be a part of it. Nice to be a part of that experience.
Thank you. And it leads into a beautiful question, which is, you know, to hold such a fond memory from nearly half my lifetime ago, I wanted to sort of ask you if there was anything you could say to long-term him fans as they open their hearts to this new project. What would you say to them?
First of all, my apologies, my sincerest apologies for noise pollution. But
it should actually be your welcome, not my apologies. It should be your welcome. No. For coming from a long-term fan, like that's what it should be.
Well, no, you know, it's because when you work on music, you can't think of anybody else. You have to be in your own little way, do your own thing, and it's kind of, even I start blushing when thinking about how music can travel and how it can make an impact on individuals across the world, somewhere in faraway lands and places. It's amazing, and I still feel maybe like an infiltrator in the realm of rock and roll, meaning that it just feels, because I'm a fan of music myself, and it feels very dreamlike, and it feels really surreal to be a part of all this, and for this particular dream to have lasted for such a long time. It's like, you know, I'm waiting for somebody to pinch me and I'll wake up in another reality, but
not yet.
No, not quite yet, but hopefully. But it's I think the cool thing about the people who followed him, and who some will join on the new venture as well, is I think that it seems that they care, and it's very the details and the sensitivities and the little, and that all that is very important, and a lot of people seem to take it to heart. It's very personal to them, and that's something I can't do anything about. I can't decide when I'm back home that now I'm going to make a song that's going to make an impact, or that is going to be felt. I can only do what feels right to me at that moment in time. And I can.
You touched on at the very beginning, you know, you said you've created it now. Like, the next step, putting it out there. You don't know where music's going to land. Yeah.
And I can only keep on doing that. That's the only reason. If it somehow travels, the emotion and the intent and the mood travels, there's no reason for me to all of a sudden change the way I work and change the way of how everything works regarding this particular little bubble of mine. But yeah, you know, it's I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that some people will understand where I'm coming from with this album. They do understand these particular sensibilities that made the album to become what it is, and once again, because it is by me nearly wholly. It's you can get fairly close to how I think and how I feel and how I hear as well, because because the decisions, how the album sounds and how it feels, were solely done by me. So in that sense, I'm not ashamed of what it is. Yet I feel a bit tender.
Yeah, of course. It's you completely opening yourself up to that vulnerability. I can imagine.
Then again, that is what we do. So, and that is what you should do, and there should be no pretend. And I
agree.
You know, so
and for whatever peace of mind, whatever.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. And for whatever peace of mind or whatever it's worth, it translated beautifully to me, and I have been listening to it for the last week, and I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Yeah, and we're going to be playing Better Love by Love, so hopefully when we make it over to Australia, you can revisit the experience with your sister.
Yes, I have seen you a number of times since then, at that point, or seen him, and it happens every time. And even if I'm not there with my sister, I just randomly look at somebody else. So
share
it with a stranger.
I gotcha.
I can't hold you for too much longer. So Wall of Sounders, for everybody who's listening, Neon Noir, the debut record from Ville Valo as a solo artist, comes this January the 13th. Tickets for his European tour are selling out like crazy. He's got 2 dates for purchase in the UK and North America, and you can pre-order the album now. With a bit of luck, we'll be welcoming Ville back down under before we know it. Thank you so much for your time, Ville, and from the bottom of my heart, congratulations on what I think is just a beautiful musical masterpiece.
Oh, I feel honored. Thanks for having me, and much love. And hey, the happiest of holidays and a beautiful start for 2023.
Oh, bless. Right back at you, darling. Thank you so much for your time.
Till next time. Ta.
Bye.